Welcome to the show. It's time to dive in. Talking sports with Evan. Let the fun begin. From the Brewers to the Packers, we cover it all. Wisconsin pride, we stand tall. The baggers on the field making history. With every touchdown, it's a victory. From Camp Randall to the court, we chill out. Wisconsin sports, we make our state proud. Feel the energy, the passion in the air. Join the conversation, we got stories to share. From the Bucks' big wins to the Brewers' great plays, we'll keep you entertained through all the games. Hey, sports with Evan, it's where we belong. Wisconsin's heart, it beats strong.
Good evening and welcome to a Thursday edition of Talking Sports with Evan. I appreciate you all tuning in and watching tonight's show. I'm Evan Witallison. Clearly, the show is named after me. So, of course, I'm Evan Witallison. But I do want to say, again, thanks for tuning in and hearing what I have to say today. And there's a few things that I would like to address and get off my chest here tonight, and not really sure, trying to figure out which way to start. So the main topics today, if you were following along on social media, is the Super Bowl and talking about the main things going around the Super Bowl and, how close are the Packers to the Super Bowl. And the Milwaukee Brewers just made a transaction right before pitchers and catchers are reporting, and they made a trade to ultimately get stronger pitching, but they have a huge question mark now, though, in other areas. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some arbitration moves. But before I get into that, a couple things I want to address. So first, before I get into that, even, you can find Talking Sports with Evan every week, sometimes a couple times a week on X at Evan with Sports. I know there's some issues with X right now and streaming live and going live, but you can find the show every week on X. You can also find it on Facebook and YouTube. Just search Talking Sports with Evan, and you can find this show and every past show on YouTube. And, Facebook's trying to take them down periodically now after so long. And you can go to Spotify, search Talking Sports with Evan. You can find every podcast episode I've ever done solo, dating back to what I was naming it, other stuff. So like Evan Witt show, Evan Witallison show, whatever. But you can find every past show I've ever done. And there's some great interviews mixed in there too with guys like Al Snow, Drew Begorn. There's Kevin Holden, there's Gangrel, there's Glacier, Jordan Reed, NFL draft analyst before you see him on ESPN. So there's just a lot of great past episodes on Spotify. You can also, if you are looking to get healthy and lose some weight and trying to gain some muscle or burn some fat, if you go to Bucked Up and use promo code TalkingSports25, you can get a discount on any product on Bucked Up's website, from energy drinks to pre-workouts to proteins to creatine, you name it, they have it there. So now that we got that business taken care of, I'm going to start with the WWE ticket prices. I'm a WWE fan. I enjoy watching wrestling, mostly WWE. And last year, prices of WrestleMania were ridiculous. Fast forward to this year, tickets to WrestleMania continue to be absolutely ridiculous. I think the nosebleed section is like $700 for one ticket. And it's not just a WrestleMania thing. It's a WWE thing in general. Since TKO was formed, since the people behind the UFC bought the company from Vince McMahon and took over and formed TKO, the prices have been going up and up and up and up and up. And as evil and corrupted and vile as Vince McMahon is, it was at least affordable to go as a fan to a basic house show or a Raw or a SmackDown. The last time WWE Raw or SmackDown, whichever one, was in Milwaukee, where I'm nearby. Last time they were in Milwaukee, the tickets are like like $60 to $80 more in the area that I usually sat in when I went. Like ticket prices are going higher and higher, and they're pricing out the average families. You talk about how you want to be a family company, you want to, be a destination for families to go and have fun. You can't be doing that if you're jacking up the prices so much that your basic family can't go. I know for the NFL, tickets can be expensive, but the Super Bowl normally is where they priced out the average family because they want corporate people there. And it's kind of like WWE starting to do. I get UFC charges a lot of money for tickets, but the thing is they have an event maybe once a month, once every couple months, a big UFC event. So there's not a lot of events that you're buying tickets for. You have a Raw every Monday. You have a SmackDown every Friday. You have a premium live event or pay-per-view known as pay-per-views. You have one of those at least once, sometimes twice a month. Like you have more WWE live events, and it's not like the crowds were sparse and the crowds were not there when the ticket prices are cheaper. The building was still packed, but unfortunately the buildings are still being filled to the rafters. But eventually the price, if the prices continue to go up, you might eventually start seeing the swing down on tickets being bought, especially with the current state of the economy. Like it's a tough market out there, and people are trying to decide what they want to spend their hard-earned money on. And if we have to keep paying more and more and more to attend a sporting event or a WWE event, we're going to start, making tough decisions on where we want that money to go. And if it's WWE, they might start having it swing the other direction in regards to what people want to spend money on. So I hope that's something that they consider doing. I know I read today that they had a meeting of the minds today with uppity ups in the company trying to talk about low ticket prices for WrestleMania. Sorry, not low ticket prices, low ticket demand for WrestleMania. And they're expecting prices to stay the same. Well, I hope they reconsider that and look at, changing things up a little bit there. So moving on, the NBA trade deadline was last week, and to apparently some people's surprise, not to my surprise, not to last week's guest Tristan Thomas's surprise, Giannis Antetokounmpo is still a Milwaukee Buck. And he will be playing once he's healthy enough to play following the All-Star break. Today is the last day of basketball before the All-Star break. Bucks are taking on Oklahoma City as we speak, up 40-34. 37, as the Thunder just nailed a 3. But what a trade deadline for the Milwaukee Bucks. They moved Cole Anthony and I forget the other guy's name. They moved two guys and eventually got two additions. One Ousmane Dieng, the other Nigel Hayes Davis, who they ended up releasing and buying out, and then they used the buyout market for Cam Thomas, and now the game's tied. But all of a sudden, the Bucks have some young guys on their team that are playing pretty well. Cam Thomas had 30-plus points last night. Dieng had a good amount of points off the bench yesterday, too. They're both looking like they can be key people once Giannis comes back playing next to Giannis. Miles Turner, missing tonight, had a calf issue, but he's been playing better as of late. Ryan Rollins, who's out with the ankle sprain, I think, or foot issue, he's been playing much better. Kevin Porter Jr. is back, and he's been on a tear recently. And if you get Giannis back fully healthy, you have a team that you're talking about tanking and settling for a lottery pick. Now, all of a sudden, if they mesh together fairly quickly and those guys keep playing well, you might be able to sneak into the playoffs as a play-in tournament team. And a lot of teams around the Bucks are trying to tank. But when you look at coming into today's game, I didn't have the standings in front of me. The Eastern Conference currently, the Bucks are 12th. They are a half a game behind the Chicago Bulls for 11th. They are two games behind the Hawks for 10th. They are 2.5 games behind the Hornets for 9th. And they are 3 games behind the Heat for 8th. And 3.5 games behind the Magic for 7th. So I personally prefer the lottery pick personally, but the Bucks keep stacking good basketball together. They can quietly sneak into the playoffs on the backside. And if Giannis can be healthy going to the playoffs, who wants to play against a healthy Greek freak come playoff time? But I think John Horst deserves a lot of credit for what he did to retool this roster. They look much better. They got some youth, got some length. Dieng's only 22. Cam Thomas is, I think, 27 or 28. And those are both positions that you need. Now, the thing is, you got to continue to play better defensively, and you got to have people that can score points when Giannis is not on the floor, when Giannis comes back, and that's something you do have in Cam Thomas. So, great work from John Horst at the trade deadline and in the buyout market. And then Pete Nance, he's been playing pretty well too for the Bucks coming off the bench. A two-way guy, probably going to have to figure out a way to get him on the active roster between now and the end of the year. And I still, as I said last week with Tristan, I'll say again, I think there is a way to retool and compete again. I think there's a window to compete with Giannis still, and I think you can do it if you do everything correctly. And I think the trade deadline and the buyout market was the start of that, because if you can get Cam Thomas for a relatively cheap deal in the next year, and you got Dieng, and you got 2 contracts you can try to move that are expiring. One Kuzma, try to move Bobby, and then your first round draft pick. You can quietly put together a pretty solid team around Giannis fairly quickly, and I think you could get back into that Eastern Conference race. I know I'm one of the only people that feel that way, and I know I'm a can't look at things objectively probably sounding person when I say that, but I definitely think there is still a path to contention with Giannis, and I don't think Giannis gets moved in the offseason. I think they find a way to keep him here in Milwaukee, and he ends up signing his extension in October. We'll see if I'm right or wrong come the summer, but that's where I sit right now. Is Dieng nailed a 3 to put the Bucks up by 3 currently during the show. So, moving on, Milwaukee Brewers. Good news today. They avoided arbitration with William Contreras on the 1-year deal with a option year for the second year. What that basically does is they didn't have to go to arbitration and potentially have hurt feelings. And that's a good thing, because we saw what happened. We saw what happened with Corbin Burns when they went to arbitration. There were some hurt feelings. We saw what happened then. What the Brewers ended up doing then a couple days ago is traded third baseman, guy who finished third in Rookie of the Year, Caleb Durbin, to the Boston Red Sox. The nice thing is you got a couple good pitchers out of that deal, and you got a utility guy who can replace Andrew Monasterio. The bad news is you don't have a third baseman because you traded Caleb Durbin, you traded Andrew Monasterio, and you traded Anthony Siegler, all 3 guys who played some third base last year. They got Kyle Harrison, Shane Drohan, and David Hamilton. Hamilton coming back to Milwaukee. He got shipped out of Milwaukee in the Jackie Bradley Jr. trade a couple years ago. But Kyle Harrison, a big left-handed pitcher who Chris Hook can do wonders with, and Shane Drohan is another pitcher who hasn't been at the major leagues yet at 27, but I'm hearing a lot of good things about him. I'm to the point with Matt Arnold. In Matt Arnold, I trust. Majority of the moves Matt Arnold has made since becoming the general manager and president of baseball operations of the Milwaukee Brewers, majority of his moves have worked out for the better for the Brewers. It just has. DL Hall, before an injury, was playing pretty well for them. Joey Ortiz had a really good rookie year, both at the plate and in the field at third base. I know last year wasn't as good. They got William Contreras in a trade after trading away Josh Hader, which drew a lot of criticism. They got that trade done, but that still might have been David Stearns, though. But either way, that was a great move. I just can't think of Rhys Hoskins was a good move overall. I know he didn't do well last year, especially down the stretch, and he lost playing time after he came back from injury to Andrew Vaughn. But the majority of moves that Matt Arnold has made since becoming the primary decision maker of the Milwaukee Brewers have tended to work out in the Brewers' favor. So overall, I'm fine with the trade. Caleb Durbin, they probably feel they reached their ceiling with him. They probably feel they reached their max potential they're going to get with Caleb Durbin. So we might as well sell high. And that's exactly what the Milwaukee Brewers did. They sold high to help get the some additional pitching to help them in the the majors and minors league. And with how much pitching the Brewers have right now at single A, a double A, triple A, and the major league level, possibly another trade coming down the pipe too. I'm just very curious on what they do at third base. You can put Joey Ortiz back at third base, but do you really want to move him again after the way he struggled transitioning with the bat, struggled transitioning to shortstop? Maybe you keep him at third base and just keep him, now he's comfortable after being there for a year. Jet Williams, who they got in the Freddie Peralta trade, you can always put him at third base. David Hamilton can play third base. So you got options, but I think the two big things the Brewers did with this move is they cleared out AAA of third baseman. They cleared out the major league of third baseman. I think Wilkin, Brock Wilkin is going to start the year at AAA and could possibly make his way to the big league level as he transitions well at that position. And Andrew Fisher, who they just drafted last year, is probably going to start the year in AA and could fly up the ladder into AAA in the big league by the end of the year if he transitions well. I think they wanted to clear some at-bats for those two. And I think that's why they made the trade too. But I'm a Matt Arnold believer, and I trust what he's doing as general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers. Lastly, the Super Bowl. That's where I'm going to end on. Super Bowl Sunday just got finished. The Seattle Seahawks beat the New England Patriots, a lot to not much. And give my general thoughts around the Super Bowl as a whole, and then how that relates to the Green Bay Packers. First of all, tip your caps to Seattle. Seattle showed that you can still win the Super Bowl by playing outstanding defense because both quarterbacks in that game were not very good. And part of it was because of the defense. Part of it was they just showed their true colors. Sam Darnold played like Sam Darnold for most of that game, aside from a couple clutch throws here and there. Drake May looked like a second-year pro. Both quarterbacks played awful. And tip your cap, though, to Seattle. They capitalized on mistakes. A fumble led to points, a interception return for touchdown that basically ended the game. It was 21-7, or maybe it was 19-7, something like that. And it looked like they had a chance, and then you had a pick six, and that pretty much did it. So I think commercials, they were not good. Most of the commercials are about weight loss. They were about crypto, gambling. That was most of the commercials. And there wasn't much humor to them. The serious ones didn't really pull at your heartstrings too much. The funny ones didn't make you laugh. The commercials to me were not very good. And then the halftime show. I thought Bad Bunny was entertaining. I don't speak Spanish. I didn't understand a lot of what he was saying, but it was still entertaining. It was still fun to watch, and it still had a very strong message. Together, togetherness, love, rather than hate, let's have love. Let's be together. He ended the show, God blessing all the Americas, because we get into this as the United States of America. We get into this tunnel, this silo, this tunnel vision that we're the only member of the Americas. We're not. We're the United States of America, but America has Canada. It has Mexico. It has the Caribbean. It has Central America. It has South America. That's all the Americas. And he's trying to say that we need to be united as one big America for the benefit of all. And I like the message. I like the message that he was portraying at the halftime show. And I think the TPUSA, whatever, halftime show, I think they really missed the mark. If they truly want to be an alternative, I think they missed the mark with who they got. Kid Rock hasn't been relevant in about 20 years. He hasn't had a number one hit in probably 20 years. 15 maybe, I guess, if you count Sweet Home Alabama, like the whatever that song is, the ripoff of Sweet Home Alabama. He hasn't had a number one hit in quite a while. I think you dropped the ball there. If you wanted to be a legit competition or a legit alternative, I think you could have done different. I think what you really could have done, take a page out of WWF's book many, many years ago where they had Halftime Heat, where you had Mankind taking on The Rock in a Falls Count Anywhere match during halftime of the Super Bowl. You could have had a boxing match. You have, well, granted he broke his jaw, but you have one of the Paul brothers who has his head up their ass. You could have had an MMA fight. You could have done something different there too. But anyway, that's my thought on the halftime stuff. And now the crucial question coming out of the Super Bowl. How close are the Green Bay Packers to reaching a Super Bowl? Now, that's a tough question because we don't know who's leaving. We don't know who's being brought back. We don't know which free agent, outside free agent help the Packers are going to try to use, and we don't even know who they're going to draft. So we don't know, but I think the Packers are closer than some. I don't think Matt LaFleur is necessarily the right guy to get them there. But I definitely think Jordan Love can win you a Super Bowl. I think he's a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl. And it'd be interesting to see what happens defensively with Gannon as defensive coordinator now. But I think the Packers are closer than most people are thinking than that they can make the Super Bowl next year. Got to remember, before Micah Parsons went down, they were 9-3. 9-3-1, I'm sorry. They were beating the Denver Broncos quite handedly when Christian Watson went down on an interception. And they were still winning when Micah Parsons went down, and the season just fell apart after that. I strongly feel that the biggest reason why the Packers settled on a 7th seed in the, why the Packers settled with the 7th seed, I really think the biggest reason why they got a 7th seed was because of injuries. I think they beat the Chicago Bears in Chicago healthy. I think they beat the Baltimore Ravens if they're fully healthy. I think they beat the Bears in the first round of the playoffs if they're fully healthy. I think the Packers won the division quite easily if they were fully healthy, but unfortunately they weren't. And they weren't able to win another game following the Micah Parsons injury. But I think the Packers are closer than people are trying to say. But there's 3 big areas they have to focus on this offseason. your offensive line, your defensive line, and your cornerback position. Those are the three biggest areas they have to focus on. And it's not just me saying that. I don't want to act like or seem like I'm the smartest person in the room, because I'm not. I know there's millions upon millions upon millions of people a lot smarter than me. So, but those are the three big areas I think they have to hit, because we saw in the first half of that Chicago Green Bay playoff game, Jordan Love was torching the Bears when he had time to throw. And the first half, he had a lot of time to throw the ball. Now, it's easy to point the finger and blame Jordan Love for the second half, but the offensive line broke down. He had no time. They had to change up their offense. They had to, do things differently because the offensive line completely broke down. And the offensive line was a big issue overall for Green Bay this year. When the offensive line played well, the offense hummed. When the offensive line played decent or average, they hummed. When the offensive line broke down, things didn't go very well. You saw it with Cleveland. You saw it with Carolina. You saw it with Chicago. You saw it with a number of times this year that when the protection broke down, the Packers offense stalled. And I think you have to reinforce that position. I do like Morgan at left tackle. I think he has the potential to be a very good left tackle. I'm not on team bust when it comes to Morgan. I think right tackle is Zach Tom, you're set. You just got to figure out the interior, figure out center, figure out if Anthony Belton is your starting right guard, and figure out if Aaron Banks is your left guard. That's what you got to figure out now. Defensive line, when Devontae Wyatt got hurt, the rush defense struggled more, and they weren't getting as much pressure from the middle. And then when Micah Parsons got hurt, there was no pass rush whatsoever, period. So that definitely hurt quite a bit there. And then corner, you're not going to win a championship with Keyshawn Nixon being your number one corner. It's just not going to happen. And the Packers need to upgrade that position. You basically had, you had a 7th round pick who's still developing. You had Keyshawn Nixon, who shouldn't be corner one, and you had Hobbs, who was injured most of the year. So I guess we'll see what happens when he gets fully healthy. But those are the main three big areas as the Packer front office needs to address. Those are the big three areas Goody needs to address and figure out. I think running back is a maybe need. Depends on what happens with Josh Jacobs. I think receiver, you're fine. I think you could use another tight end, as Luke Musgrave does not look to be the part, and you need somebody to take over that role until Tucker Kraft is ready to come back. But I think the roster is good enough to win the division. I think the roster is good enough to compete for a chance to play in the Super Bowl. But those three positions, offensive line, defensive line, and corners, those are going to be the big three positions that the Packers need to figure out if they're going to have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. So those are just my thoughts. I know majority don't care, but those are just my thoughts. But make sure to follow me on X at Evan with Sports. Make sure to follow the show on Facebook and YouTube, Talking Sports with Evan. And I will make sure to subscribe to YouTube as well, as there will be some new content going up there pretty regularly very soon. So with that said, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I'll be back at it next week. I hope you have a safe rest of your week, safe weekend. We'll talk to you later.